When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Well, protective intelligence is a new thing. Not really new. It's been going on for a while. But you have the analysts that are out there, and they just scrub the internet. They scrub threats. What's being said on socials, and then you have the deep dark stuff. And I don't do it professionally, so I'm not going to talk out of step because I don't do that role. But I know people that do, and I know the industry is shifting to protective intelligence because you need protective intelligence data to give to the CFO, general counsel, to give to the C-suite and say, hey, here's our data. Here's what we see. We did a scrub. Here's the threats. Here's the soft off. Here's your targets. And Principal A, Mrs. A, and Mrs. B, they leave their house at 8 o'clock in the morning to go to work. When they leave that driveway, guess what? The most exposed time as an executive or owner of a company is exposed going to work and coming home.
Because it's a routine.
And someone casing you, doing surveillance on you that wants to do a hit. I'm sure the guy that did a hit on Brian Thompson, I'm sure he studied his behavior. Maybe he just got lucky at the right place at the right time. I don't know. I'm not in that investigation. But all it takes is a couple of people to start surveilling you, watching you, and you piss somebody off somewhere. You didn't return your Amazon package and in time, someone gets pissed off and they start watching you. And then also, I think companies and firms need to also, that are servicing the high net worth, they need to, the security providers, that is, they need to develop a relationship with the executive assistant, the chief of staff. And I hear the problem is the executive assistants are trying to communicate to the teams, but the teams don't understand the culture, and there's a cultural barrier of communication. And I hear oftentimes in the barrier.
Let me clarify.
Okay.
So a chief of staff at the family office is trying to communicate down to the estate staff, and there's a disconnect there.
That's what I'm in here.
Oh yeah. Well, let's speak to that for a little bit.
Absolutely.
I have a lot to say on that topic.
Please do. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So there's a real big operational financial disconnect in high net worth service right now. So what has happened is that the boom of wealth has exploded. Family office needs are prevalent, and they are cropping up more and more every single day. If you talk to our family office colleagues, they'll say all of these family offices are unnecessary because you need to have a certain wealth under management in order for a family office to even make sense for you financially. It's just a drain on your resources. But because people want that internal control, because they want everything in-house, because they want a small circle of trust, all of these family offices, single family offices, multi-family offices are cropping up. And typically these are wealth managers, they're wealth advisors, accountants, CFOs. These are people that are money motivated to do three things in family office services: grow, preserve, and maintain wealth. That is the entire philosophy around a family office. Family offices were started by the Rockefellers.
Interesting.
And so, there is a philanthropic arm of a family office because they, for tax purposes, they portion out a segment of their wealth that is generated and creating philanthropic endeavors with 501c3s and things that they can then parcel off a portion of their incomes to give charitably. And so that's a great arm of family office care. But all of this is still financial management. Now we've got my world. I'm on the operations side. And in any good business model from any industry, you know that finance and operations are always two sides of the same coin. Finance is always in opposition to operations, and operations is always in opposition to finance.
Mm-hmm.
So historically, business has always had the control mechanism be finance, because they say, well, you're costing the company XYZ dollars, or we see a cost savings here. They're penny pinchers or spreadsheet spreadsheet movers and shakers. God bless the numbers people. I am not one of them. Now you think about any industry in terms of operations. The operations people are seeing the systems and processes play out on a daily basis. And whether it's manufacturing, whether it's industry, whether it's agriculture, I don't care what the business is. An operations person is always then going to have to make their case to the finance person about why they need more time, money, equipment, people, resources. They're always having to advocate for their case to the finance person. So if you want to translate this into private service, now we have a whole different conundrum because there is no wealth generation on the estate management operations side. Estate management operations is strictly a cost center. So you've got all of these good intentioned people like myself, caring professionals that have made our career to help and serve our clients. And we are the nannies, we are the housekeepers, we are the drivers, we are the executive protection. You would be on the operations side. You're not on the wealth management side. All of, chefs and drivers and all of these things to add to the enjoyment and the betterment of our clients so that they can go be the better people that they're meant to be in the world. How do you quantify care? How do you quantify safety and security? How do you quantify someone's life when you can't go effectively to a client, Mark, and say, I'm going to save you X number of dollars a year? That's not your sales pitch, is it? You're going to say, I'm going to cost you XYZ a year because I'm here to save your family's life.
Risk assessment, threat assessments. Give it to the general counsel and CFO.
And so in layman's terms, what you're selling them is safety and security.
Absolutely.
What a nanny is selling them is peace of mind with their children. What a chef and a chauffeur is selling them all of these things so that operationally the care and the cog in the wheel that keeps their life turning can continue. When you look at that through the lens of a spreadsheet, it doesn't amount to much. It just looks like dollars and cents. It says we have too many people. This is too much to manage money-wise. And then all of a sudden, the family and the client ends up being the glue to mitigate the discrepancy in communication, which is how we got on this conversation between the family office chief of staff and the actual people that are doing the daily processes, like the personal assistants, the executive assistants, the people that are touching the client daily. And there is a communication disconnect.
Oh, yeah. I hear all about it all the time.
And this is a soapbox I want to solve. I want to solve it for my clients. I want to solve it for the staff. I want to solve it for the wealth advisors because day in and day out, I talk to family offices. Now, it's generally multifamily offices that don't get it.
Got it.
A single family office will absolutely understand because essentially they're all internal and they're all W-2 employees for the client that they're serving, right? So they're interwoven into the actual complexity of the operations in a different capacity than a fractional family office is. A fractional family office is just pushing around the paper. God bless them. We need their services. But I will never be a finance person and they will never understand the care and the situational awareness it takes to handle their security or handle their loved ones like a nanny or a security personnel.
Wow. That's a course right there.
It's a whole kit and caboodle, right? So these are the things that I want to be on the forefront of the change conversation in the 21st century as to how we handle this on behalf of the people that we serve, because we are all well-meaning. The wealth managers, I'm sure, in their meetings are going to the principals and saying, I found this problem and I want to provide you a solution, and they're out for their best interest. But unless we can get the finance people talking to the operations people, the family's always going to be the glue and they're always going to have to be that conduit of communication. And that's where breakdowns occur, because unless you can enjoy your lifestyle and take a step back, you're always in the mix of managing it. And this is what I tell my clients always, that you have to process and systematize these things for the people that you're trying to delegate to, or else you're just going to be picking up the cell phone 24/7 and calling everyone in your bubble of trust. And this person's getting this information, this person's getting this information, this person's getting this information, and you are continually having to be the glue unless you set some systems into place and let that run like clockwork in the background.
I can imagine the conversation internally with the family is like, They get the attorneys involved, the CFOs involved, obviously, and they're crunching the numbers. And you went over budget. What the heck? Well, the kids decided to go to the trip and take the jet. Who approved that?
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah,
get the
so this
executive assistants getting chewed out. Why did you do that? Who approved the budget? And the executive assistants going after the detail leader of the security program, going, "What the heck?" It's a domino effect.
100%. And so this is where these rules and permissions on decision-making rights, purchasing authority, all of that can be maintained in a system in a manual and have it written down for the processes. So this is what I do as an estate management consultant and what many of my colleagues do to help to reframe the conversation so that you don't have to have that domino effect when it comes to your particular silo. Because every silo in operations um, has a domino effect to the other silos, you know. But certainly, childcare and safety and security are at the
Mm,
forefront. Family care management and safety and security. Some of the other, we'll call them frivolous purchase, channels might necessarily need to go by the wayside to
mm.
make security a priority. Because before you know it, the problem is another problem I see in my consultancy is that just like I'm talking about my family with the mansion with the address that was all over the internet, before they realize that their wealth has caught up with their lifestyle, it's already a problem. They already have a security threat. They already have a risk because they can't, if they're not setting up these security systems and processes on the front end, the then your team is having to scrub and do the internet work on the back end to try to get their name off of things, to try to get their phone number out of the yellow pages or wherever it is online, you know. So there's a lot of client education that needs to happen around these things. And then there's a lot of um cohesion that needs to occur in the industry so that we're all singing from the same playbook.
I had to mute my mic because my sister just walked in and the dog just started going crazy.
No, that's all right. We'll take
They
a quick
walked out the
break
door.
and we'll cut this out.
We're good. She just walked out the door with them. She just checked in on the dog and I put it on mute so he didn't hear anything. I'm like, oh, better put it on
Yeah,
mute. That was a great case study we just did. That was
totally.
whoa. That was just
Love
like
it.
nobody's gonna talk about that dirty stuff. But
Which
it-
dirty stuff? Which direction do you want to go? There's so much to unpack. There's so
there is.
much.
There is. I'm like, wow, this is a good meaty podcast because it explains the inner workings of why there's so much friction, or why the detail leaders all upset with the EA and the EA is upset with the detail leader because they just don't communicate. And a lot
Yeah.
of times I hear
So,
they just don't want to deal with um the buff guys that are alpha personalities. They don't listen.
mhm.
That's what I'm hearing
so
too.
so that's a great question that I have for you. So kind of harking back to how you do your risk assessment,
Mm.
mitigation strategy, all that kind of stuff. Um, what do you tell a client when you're putting a team in place? How do you structure your teams? What's a typical case study for you? Maybe they don't need round the clock care. Maybe they just need certain hours protected. Kind of pick your typical client package, explain the process, explain what close protection, private protection looks like, and some of the factors that go into play when you're orchestrating that team for the client.
Hey, you just find out what the needs are. What do they need help with? Is there a new threat? Is this a new threat? Well, they never had security before. Okay, we have to have the right personality matches with the principals. Okay, we got to screen the correct candidates, and it may take time. And at that level, they're used to getting what they want when they want it. They don't wait around. It's just that's their lifestyle, and you got to tell them it's going to take some time to find a good fit because one guy may work out for a little bit, and then life happens, and personalities bump head with the EA sometimes, and the EA is the gatekeeper. They're the trusted advisor to the principals.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's some butting heads going on, you have to give yourself a probation period of
Mm.
recruiting correct individuals, correct agents. And what are their needs? Are they going overseas? Okay. Then you have to create that travel package. You got the program management. Who's it going to be the program manager to be interfacing with the executive assistant and the principal and the Mr. and the Mrs. Or, maybe you have a married, two people are married together and they're not Mrs. and Mrs. Maybe you have that situation. So you
Yeah.
have to be sensitive to those cultures and how
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
family dynamics. And so you have to find people that are okay with the culture that they're in. You have to find out people that are able to communicate. Are they confident? And sometimes I'm hearing too, especially in the Bay Area, a lot of EAs are just getting tired of the military robust men out there that just are tough to communicate with and they don't listen. That's what I'm hearing a lot of
Mhm.
lately in the Bay Area. And maybe it's the new money as well. But you want to handpick the right staff, the right security team, and make sure they know how to communicate, make sure that they have a very cool temperament. Can they take pressure? Can they handle the pressure? Because
Mhm.
so some of these people are running multi-billion-dollar industries, and you're living in their world. And a lot of the younger agents I'm hearing are, they like to get on social media and start posting stuff. I'm like, wait, this is not your trip. You're working with the client who has this lifestyle. And so the situation is, yeah, you got to put NDAs in place, policies, procedures in place to protect that family office. You get
I agree
HR
with
involved.
all of that. I agree with all of that. I want to touch on something that you said briefly and kind of take a tangent here, but I think it will be helpful for your audience. So I don't think we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, but I am a doctoral candidate in organizational leadership. I'm writing the first ever academic doctoral work in estate management in the history of
Whoa.
academia.
Columbia
So I'm
University, right?
actually, what's that?
Columbia
Columbia International University, not
International. Okay.
Columbia yeah,
Okay.
different university. But
That's a big
through
deal.
my
That's a lot of work.
thank you. Well, I'm very excited about what I'm uncovering in my research, and so I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on this, on just something simple that you mentioned that I think would be interesting to your audience. Um, in my doctoral work, I'm intermeshing the layers of an onion that is this world in which we work, and
Mhm.
so it's the family sociology, the family psychology, the family care management, like we've touched on, their lifestyle spread, the lifestyle management that comes into that 5-star service, that hospitality mindset
Mhm.
that you have to have when you're in a customer service environment that we all are in. We're just in a very unique silo of customer service as our roles play out on behalf of the family. And all of these complexities have never been uncovered in the capacity of research, like comprehensively all together under the umbrella of high net worth estate management. And so there's something in the commercial hospitality literature that I think is really interesting that I am trying to teach my clients and talk about publicly more as it relates to my research. So, my undergrad and master's are in hospitality. Hospitality is the foundational approach for everything we do on the operations side of private service, because we've got, beds to make and housekeeping to do and food to make. And, that hospitality model is essentially what we're modeling after in the commercial capacity, but we're doing it in a residential context.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a lot of rich academic business literature in hospitality business circles about how you create your service environment in terms of a hospitality sense. So I'm going to just divulge here in a little bit into an anecdote that will help the audience kind of understand what that means, because I'm going to introduce a word called a servicescape. And a servicescape is everything that goes into the ambiance, the structure, the identity, the place, the positioning, and the overall service environment, the container for the service. So I want you to think about two companies that we all know and love. I want you to think about Disney, and I want you to think about Chick-fil-A.
Hmm. Okay.
Disney, instantly when you think about that Disney servicescape, you understand what I'm talking about. They invite you into their magical world. They all have uniforms. They all teach um, their staff members to have this communication style that's very bubbly, very personable. They exceed on the hospitality and 5-star service. They go above and beyond to create that magic happen. And so whether you're at their parks or their resorts, you understand kind of the Disney service-scape that they invite you into when you're in that world. So conversely, I'll pull in like a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons, something that we all know and love as very posh, very proper. Their uniforms are different. The staff is going to interact with you in a different tone, a different flow to the conversation. Oh, good evening, Mr. and Mrs. How are you today? It's not as jovial, it's not as personable as Disney, but it's still within the service-scape that you expect within that 5-star hospitality endeavor. So Disney's delivering on their service-scape, Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, they're delivering on their service-scape. Who else is delivering on their service-scape? Chick-fil-A. Every time you walk into a Chick-fil-A,
True.
well, what do they say? Thank you. Oh, my pleasure. Oh,
Wow.
it's not your welcome, And so you expect their uniforms, the way they speak to you in a certain way. So this is something that I'll stop there because I think I think we all understand the concept that I'm going for. The service-scape of a family is never expressed outright. The family doesn't know necessarily how to articulate the level of service, the formality of service that they're looking for, how they want their service to feel. And so the reason I'm touching on this, what triggered me in this, tangent here, is when you said the Bay Area doesn't like that military approach. Well, that military approach goes over great in a lot of places, and I can think of Dubai, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, all the people that are very, very wealthy that have staff that prefer that militaristic approach to their safety and security.
Interesting.
That service-scape doesn't necessarily translate to the Bay Area because they're more California cool, they're casual, they don't want their people in uniform, they want to be more covert. So this is a conversation that I have with my clients in every capacity. How do you want your staff to interact with you? What is the feel of the formality level of the staff interactions that you're looking for?
Right.
And how can we deliver on that in every capacity? Well, now we're creating what hospitality literature would call a service-scape. And as you define that better for the family, they can start to put words to it. They can say, okay, well, the Ritz-Carlton is too formal for us, but maybe something in the middle. Like we want that formality, we want that structure, but we don't want it to feel so fancy. So this level of formality versus functionality is something that I unpack for my clients each and every day, where I'm able to say, okay, the fanciness is just the icing on the cake. Whether they're in a military uniform and that's the icing on the cake, or whether they're in a 3-piece suit, that's the icing on the cake. But the structure that you put into place to put those policies and procedures in is actually what bakes the cake. And so, you can package that 5-star level of service in any capacity. I'm sure you can train your guys to be California cool and covert, and you can actually train them to have that air of sophistication and that bodyguard feel that is more indicative of a military mindset. So this is where I love to have this conversation with my clients, because once they see the value of kind of training to the personality style that they prefer to be served with, really it's just all gravy from there. Because then you can say, well, how does that navigate into every aspect of our lifestyle? And now you're servicing this family personally instead of in just a cookie cutter approach.
Boot camp. That's where I go. Marine Corps vet. I just go boot camp for agents.
Well, they indoctrinated you in boot camp, right? You knew how to stand. You knew how to answer. So that's service training in its highest capacity. Right. Chick-fil-A sends their kids through boot camp, and Disney has an onboarding. It's called Disney University, and they send them to 3 days of Disney boot camp, and they become Disney, Mickey Mouse-keteers, right? So that indoctrination for how you speak, how you answer, what you do, all of that is the service-scape that you can create for our clients.
Yeah, I think we just peeled the onion on what we have to do to make the mergers with the teams cohesive with the executive assistants and the family offices on the estates. Because you have to understand the culture. Maybe you're working maybe with a foreigner, and they're Sharia law up in the Middle East, and they just bought a house in Silicon Valley, San Mateo, and they don't want the men to be around the women. That's just Sharia law. That's the culture.
Hmm.
And then, or you have a tech billionaire, and they don't even want to see you. It's just they don't want that privacy invasion of their space to the culture.
Yeah,
Everything
and
culture.
far be it from any of us to try to stereotype any one culture, values, capacity of any one person, because we're all so complex creatures. Humans, we come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different values. So even if we can say, the Bay Area is like this, or Miami's like this, or the Middle East is like that, you're still in a very complex working environment where you have to unpack and navigate the personal preferences of an individual and help meet their needs most effectively in the way they wish to be served, instead of in the way they think you want them to be served.
Correct. Wow. I think it's another good case study.
For sure, for sure. I think we're on a roll. This has been great.
Yeah, this has been a good podcast of good content, just of facts and good stuff. The audience on your end of the industry would probably they start. Oh my gosh, I never thought about that. And then the guys, men and women in our industry, going, oh, that's where we're missing the block. The EA relationship to the chief of staff, and then the pushback with the family office versus the family, and I knew that from the corporate standpoint because they call it invoice shock or sticker shock. They get the invoice like, okay, shut it down to half staff. They just don't want to spend the money. And I'll jokingly say to my team, well, look at it this way, guys and gals. Um, they don't want to spend their bonuses on a bunch of bodyguards at their house.
But at the same time, if we can show the value for the
Hmm.
care that we're providing, you can't quantify care. You can't quantify what it means to a family to have that peace of mind. You can't quantify what it means to save them hours and time and
Hmm.
resources when an executive assistant is doing work behind the scenes so that they don't have to take time out of their busy schedule to do it. So, yes, it is a cost center, will never be a wealth generating center, because we're not selling anything. We're not selling widgets. I can't, you know, I'm not selling cookbooks if I'm a chef. I'm not selling, nanny manuals if I'm a nanny. I'm just doing that one thing. So it's always going to be at the level the family prefers for their
Hmm. Right.
staffing structure and the level of service that they want to pay for. You can have one person do that job 3 hours a day. You can have three people do that job 24 hours a day. It's
Right.
it's 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 what level you wish to be served in your home environment.
Wow.
And there's no way to monetize that. It's always going to be a cost center.
Now, what do you see in the next? I see the business world picking up and exploding. I just see a lot of wealth coming into the U.S. I'm hearing the conferences coming back. I'm hearing a lot of foreign investments coming over. Is that kind of what you're seeing from your clientele of the surge of investments and stuff like that?
Well, certainly. And I mean, again, that's not my expertise,
Hmm.
but on this topic, I think that the wealth transfer is a very much at the forefront of everyone's mind. We've got the baby boomers, transferring up teen $1 trillion of wealth to the next generation. And the family offices are created to grow, preserve, and maintain wealth through the generations, but also make sure that that knowledge transfer is handled effectively, that the next generation knows what buckets and containers and everything is sorted into. So that is where we need the intricacies of attorneys and legal professionals and tax professionals and, all of the complexity that goes into managing an estate of this nature. Um, that alone is daunting. And so,
Hmm.
I can only do my piece of it. I can only do my due diligence on the operations side, but it does um, impact the next generation when we're talking about training up new staff members for these roles. And it talks about, it touches on the increase of people that are going to be requiring our services in the future. So the more we professionalize now and the more that we in the industry can all agree as to some basic best practices, I think it's going to be beneficial because then we don't feel like we're reinventing the wheel every single time we talk to a new client.
Right.
I certainly feel that, on our industry side and the estate management side, we feel like there's not a one repository of information a client can go to kind of get the ins and outs of how to run an estate effectively.
Right.
And to your point, you're probably having, I know that there was just a safety and security conference in Nashville a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
and the industry gathers together with subject matter experts that are all professionals. You all talk amongst yourselves about the things you want to change and the things you're coming up and the things that you're seeing. But unless you can kind of all showcase that in a white paper for your clients and saying, this is what we as this expertise recommend based on what we're seeing down in the future, it's like you're trying to have to fish for every single family. And so that's really hard. And so I think that it's an education piece. I think that it's a client communication challenge. It's it's a an onboarding of best practices. And that will happen as the wealth transfer occurs, and that will happen as wealth grows, as that influx into the US that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing about it. I mean, the buzz is picking up. It's kind of quiet from a lot of people I talk to. The industry is really a lot quieter than it used to be. And so I think we're probably going to see a big shift happen in the next probably 30, 60 days in calls for services and whatnot. So
Yeah.
Jennifer, where can people find you?
Thank you so much. So my website is called Luxury Lifestyle Logistics.
Okay.
And again, I'm an estate management consultant. And so I go in to the families' personal residences. I meet the staff. I meet the owners. I help work out these complex, scenarios and help advise in every capacity. And yeah, so they can reach me at my website, which is www.luxurylifestylelogistics.com. And I'm happy to have a conversation in this or any other capacity as it relates to estate management. So thank you so very much, Mark, for having me on the podcast today. I'm so pleased to know you and link arms with you as a colleague in this industry.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. And if you hear a dog barking in the back, dogs in the house barking away and all excited, we'll go running. So
That's all right. That's all right. We'll wrap up. But thank you so much. I look forward to continued conversation, and I hope that we have these conversations again soon.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for coming in. And this is sponsored by Ledlow Security Group. And you can find us on LinkedIn and all the podcast platforms at Heroes Mindset. And thanks for tuning in, folks.